Okay. Hi. Good to see y'all again. So Franklin Vanderweil says, yes, it works. Okay. I'm going to end that question. This Christmas and New Year's was a really exciting time for me because I kind of transitioned out of the field of sports psychology for a little bit. I'd gone into professional coaching and I'd gone back into teaching in order to make money for my family, essentially. But esport is booming in such a way that it's really exciting to get into right now. And I'm really glad that people are interested in this mental skills training, which is, in my opinion, one of the best and healthiest and fastest ways to get better at the game. Of course, having a coach is nice, but if you can coach yourself, it's even better. One of the things I did yesterday was write an article about doping in esport. And in that article, I shared how to optimize your performance legally, so without using performance enhancing drugs. And one of the more interesting debates is about whether you should drink energy drinks or coffee to get your caffeine or tea. And because I've seen on the neurological level how bad sugar is for your brain and just how badly it makes you perform, I've been leaning a lot more towards coffee and tea because they simply don't have sugar in them, and they have all these other health benefits. Energy drinks are basically just overloaded sugar, and what happens is it spikes your blood glucose in serum, which spikes your insulin, which then drags down your blood glucose, which makes your energy level low, and then you need another energy drink. It's basically a non-energy creating addictive cycle, and the energy drink companies know this. Of course, that's why they put so much sugar in these drinks. So it's really a kind of a conspiracy. In the same way that Gatorade always added a little bit more salt to their drinks, and then they added tons of sugar to their drinks. Um, and then the sodium would make you more thirsty because you would actually, even though you were drinking water, your electrolyte balance would go down. So you'd end up more thirsty. And Gatorade got away with this for decades before somebody said, hey, your drink is like mostly salt. It's the wrong electrolyte balance. You're actually making people more thirsty with this drink. And they said, yeah, okay, well, now people know. We'll lower the sodium. Okay, so DB Reckelman's asked, in your webinars, you focus a lot on the elite, but what about the normal players? It's still easy to tilt in a normal game if you just play for fun. Is there a less lifestyle changing, I would say, way of avoiding tilt in these games? So, yes. First of all, let me say the reason that I focus on elite is because my website is all about uh, those who are aiming for pros. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of resources I'm developing for players who just want to have fun. However, the best way to have fun is to focus on healthy therapeutic adaptive techniques. So things like uh, finding ways to care about things other than the game, training skills instead of relying on a win or a loss, and things like completely muting out all of your teammates so that you can just play in your own world and not have any sort of social feedback pressure. So if you're tilting in a normal game and you just want to have fun, the reason you tilt is because you're nervous about your performance. If you're nervous about your performance, if you're getting feedback from those around you that's negative. So cut off the negative feedback, you can stop being nervous about your performance. But that doesn't always work. So what I recommend is acceptance, commitment, mindfulness practice. So this is a therapy that is used in normal psychology and performance psychology. It's used across all sorts of human endeavors, whether it's alcoholism or stress at work. And the idea is that you accept that your internal state is something that you can't control. You don't try to control your emotions, but you commit yourself to behaviors that are in line with your values. So if your value is to have fun with the game, then you you get really nervous and you start tilting and you're frustrated because you're not having fun. You can't control that. That's an automatic reaction to the environment. But what you can control is how you behave. So Marcus Aurelius says also uh, that, let me see if I can get this quote right. The best form of revenge is not to not imitate. So essentially what I'm saying is that you act the way that you want to act if you were having fun with the game, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. There was a famous boxer who said, you know that little voice inside of you that is always like giving you self-doubt and telling you you're not good enough? Well, you can train that voice. And I trained mine to shut up. Okay, so that's kind of funny, but it's true. You can train it, and you can train yours to say, hey, this is fun if you want to. You just have to focus on the things that you can control and not the things that you can't control. One of the best activities to do this is to sit down before a game of League of Legends and write out a list. List all the things in the game that you can control in the next game that's coming up. Then list all the things in the game that you cannot control. And then find a way to let those uncontrollable things go. If you can't control them, then you can only do the things that you can control. And remember, thoughts are not one of the things that you can control. I don't know if you know this by now. You've probably figured it out. Actions are something that you can control. And your actions feed back. Everything in the body is connected. People talk about the mind-body disconnect. It's all, I almost swore there. It's all nonsense. There is only one thing. It's the mind-body. It's a single unit. So everything is in a feedback loop. And so the things that you do affect how you think about them. So behave the way that you want to behave, control the things that you want to control, and think about it in those terms, and it will start affecting how you think about it, which affects your tilting. Because tilting is essentially an inward focus, a focus on your thoughts, remember? And so you have to focus more on the task of having fun. Do you have any tips on how to set goals for the next season? If you have achieved your goal in season 4, but you want to get better in season 5. Of course, my dream goal is to reach Challenger, but I will try hard to get Master at all costs. How to set goals for the next season. I recommend doing one of the time-based breakdown activities where you find out what your dream goal is. So you look like 7 to 15 years in the future. You say, how is what I'm doing now going to be incorporated into my life? And the best way to be happy with your approach in recreational activities like League of Legends, or in sporting activities like League of Legends, depending on how you see it, if it's for fun or if it's for sport, is to realize that you're training transferable skills. So you are learning things in League, whether you're recreating or sporting, that you can use in other aspects of your life. So I think that one of the best ways to enhance that and enjoy that journey is to connect that journey to the future. Think strongly about the kind of person that you want to be. You don't even need necessarily to have a destination, but you can think about who it is that you want to be. And you can think about how it is that your daily steps toward becoming that person play out in the game that you're playing or enjoying. And you can find ways of setting goals towards that endeavor. So of course you set goals like reaching Challenger and reaching Master, but what do you want to reach in your personal development? Because those things will be the ones that you will be living with in 7 years down the road, and that you'll have a chance to enjoy forever, because you're transfer them to the next thing that you're doing, even if that's being a pro player in another esport, or managing a team, or developing your own brand, or going to the business world, whatever it ends up being. By the way, you can vote up questions and vote them down. So if you want yours to go up, promote it and get everybody else to vote it above Franklin's here. Okay, so Franklin asks, I understand that skill is not the same as being diamond or gold, but there's a huge gap between diamond 5 and diamond 1 or 2. So what would be a good strategy to gain experience besides watching streams? Play a lot and train a lot? Or besides watching streams, playing a lot and training a lot, I think maybe. Okay, so what's a good strategy to gain experience? What you're talking about is how you always have to play against your own level. And if you could play against Diamond 1, you would learn a lot every game. People who are in the challenger scene teams, when they play LCS teams, they say, "Oh my gosh, I learned so much from that game because we got stomped, but I learned like 7 new things about how to league or how to lane." There was a top lane player in the US challenger scene named Cac God, and he got a chance to lane against Mac Noon in the recent promotion tournament. And he said that even though he lost all 3 games and got horribly stomped, he learned like 50 new things just from playing those 3 games. So there is a huge gap, and it's great to gain experience in those situations, but it's hard because you don't get to play against them. You have to play against people close to your level. So watching streams is a good thing, but it's better to watch streams plus watch your own play. Because believe it or not, you can totally rewrite the kind of memories you have, and it's not a very effective way to remember your own play to think about it. It's much better to watch it. So if you can find a way to watch your own play, and then you watch a professional streamer, you will very quickly see little differences that you can pick up and things that you can practice that you didn't notice or think about before. And yeah, you think, oh yeah, but I would know what those are. I'm in the lane. I know I made that mistake. I just want to know how to improve that mistake. But actually, when you watch, like I'm a cutie pie, play AD carry, and then you watch yourself play AD carry, you'll come away with a huge list of to-do list of little minute things that are very concrete things to improve on. It's really useful. Kind of theoretically going along with the answer I just gave to Franklin, images are one of the most powerful ways that our brain thinks. People can memorize a deck of cards, the order of a randomized shuffled deck of cards, in less than a minute if they use a sort of image game to do it. And that's because the human mind is wired for imagery. So watching streams and then watching your own play, really fantastic way to get at your core like brain abilities. Anita asks, can you give us a hint about EU LCS teams you're coaching this season? Oh, which ones? Yeah. Also, when I noticed that I have good days and bad days. Is there a way to recognize whether I'm having a good day or bad day without getting into solo queue and getting frustrated? So yes, I'm coaching the Denmark large wild dogs. There's my hint. So if you figure that riddle out, you can type it in the chat. Okay, so when I play, I notice I have good days and bad days. Yes. You, in the 5-minute journal, which is a resource I linked in the presentation, there is a set of questions, and you're supposed to answer them at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. But at the beginning of the day, you lay out basically what it is that you want to accomplish that day, your wins, the 3 things that you want to be effective at doing. And at any point in the day, you can simply look at that list and say, I haven't done any of these. I'm not having a very good day. It's like a status update. So the best way to know if you're having a good day or a bad day is to say in the morning what it is you want to get done that day. And if it's already 4 p.m. and you haven't achieved a single thing on your list, you might not be having the most effective day ever. Of course, that can change around in a moment. Mood is one of those things that's in the background. So like your emotions can change moment to moment. You can be having a really good time and then a really bad time. But the mood is like the aggregate average behind the scenes. And that means that good days and bad days typically come in sequence because your mood changes over the course of several days or weeks. And so if you're having a bad day, that means you're going to be in one of the cycles. And that means either the day before or the day after, it's more likely that it'll be bad. So you want to do extra things to make it good. And if you're having a good day, that means you're in that cycle. Your mood is essentially quite good. So you want to try to do things to stay in that cycle if you can. And these cycles don't have to have an end date. Like I was in a 2-year upswing cycle when I moved to Finland. I was in a good mood for 2 years. Mostly that's because I was walking like 4 kilometers a day for work and stuff. But like you can be in a good mood forever. Oh, by the way, one of the ways to hack your brain to be in a good mood all the time is gratitude. Tony Robbins is a positive thinker, like success coach, and he's coached some of the most amazing people in the world, like Mother Teresa, Oprah. I think I already mentioned Oprah. I'm trying to think of new people. Well, a lot of people. John, I can't remember his name. Anyway, one of the things that he and a lot of other very successful people and happy people do is that they every morning, they in their morning routine, they practice gratitude. So they think about what the opportunities and the benefits that they have in this life are, and they are very thankful for them. And it's very hard to have a bad day when you live in a constant state of gratitude and appreciation for the way that your life is. And that doesn't happen automatically. You have to practice this because everybody can reframe their life in a bad way, and a lot of people can reframe their life in a good way. It depends completely on your personal viewpoint, and then of course on your experiences and your mental trauma and the chemicals in your brain. So some people, they have chemical deficiencies, they can't do that. But if you've got a standard level of experiences and you're not therapeutically challenged. Half Solace. Half Solace asks, in your experience, how conscious are the pros currently in the scene, particularly in League, of the kind of psychology and training methods such as the one you speak of? How conscious are the pros? Nil. Zero. Zilch. Nada. They are basically operating in a completely new sport, in a completely immature way, essentially. There are some really fantastic, committed professional pros out there who have literally done some reading on success. But there's so few of them. And the problem is not necessarily the pros, because a lot of times this is athlete development we're talking about. This is quite normal that you don't have that point of view. The problem is actually with the team managers and the coaches, which have no concept of this, because League is not professionalizing very fast. Thorin Duncan Shields, whose in-game name is, or whose journalism name is Thorin, has a video about professionalization in League of Legends, or in esport actually. And he talks about this real issue that teams are not professionalizing. They're going out and hiring a coach from their group of friends. And part of it is because they don't want to pay the money. Like Fnatic recently advertised for a coach, and they put up a job listing for a professional coach. But they put up a job listing for somebody that I believe they have no intention of hiring, because a professional coach is going to be a little bit more advanced in age. They're going to need things like a family relocation, a salary maybe more than 80,000 euros a year, and all of these other things that no organizations are willing to put out. And so professionalization is happening very slowly as teams get more and more money. And basically it's happening through inbreeding. So people are going in and they're figuring stuff out, and they're kind of getting down the line. Curse is a good example of a team that's going kind of professional. Like they got a professional sports psych. They're trying to train their coaches more professionally, and I think it shows in their results. One of my predictions before Voyboy left the North American LCS Curse roster was that Curse was going to take first place in the LCS this year because their professionalized approach. But now Voyboy's left, and he was what I was hanging a lot of my evaluation on, because I really think that he had a strong psychological profile for professionalism in developing a elite play. But now I'm not so sure. Okay, Aircon says, last season I somehow made it to plat. I had a lot of fun playing it, but now in the end of the season and the preseason I dropped, and I'm missing the fun. I don't know what actually happened, because my mindset didn't really change. So what could it be? Well, I would argue that your mindset actually did change, because having fun is a mindset. So it did change. The question is what caused it to change, and how can you address it if you want to address it? So you were platinum for the first time, I'm assuming. And I think that motivation is a really key element in terms of enjoyment. People who are motivated by things enjoy them, and people who enjoy things are typically motivated by them. And motivation comes with three parts: competence, and two other parts, which I don't want to talk about right now, but competence is one of the most important ones. So as you were going from wherever you were to Platt, you were feeling more and more competent in your abilities. You were feeling up to the challenge, maybe slightly challenged, but like you could conquer it every single day. So what happens when you perceive dropping down and you start going through the struggle again, the motivation wanes because your competence level is in Platt, but your ranking says you're in gold. So technically it should be easy if your competence is actually in Platt, right? But that's all perception. And it can be a struggle as you are kind of trying to go back up to where you believe your competence level is. And that's a really hard thing to take care of, because sometimes it's that you're simply, your competence belief and your actual skill level is not lined up, right? So you need to start thinking about other ways of being motivated so that you can enjoy it again. So the two other pillars of motivation are essentially relatedness, or like purpose. So how related you are to your goal. When you were going to Platt, you probably felt like this was some sort of goal, or you were improving, you had something, and you believed it was going to improve your life, or that you were having fun. But how related are you to regaining platinum? Is that something that you care about or strive for, that's important to your being or your essence? If not, it's hard to be motivated about regaining platinum. Just like it's hard to be motivated about counting quietly in my head from 50 to 75 and then drinking water. Like, that's not something I'm connected to in any way, so I don't care. So you have to reframe your climb to platinum in a totally different way, something that connects to you and what's important to you. Maybe it's like, you don't want platinum, you want diamond. That's your goal. So like, it doesn't matter where you are or what you're regaining. Oh no, one of the questions just disappeared. Put it back, put it back. It doesn't matter like if you're in gold and you're climbing through to platinum on your way to diamond. Like, you can stop thinking about the fact that you're behind where you should be, and you can be thinking about something else that you're attaching your purpose to. So just to recapitulate what I said to you, Erican, your mindset did change. And so the fix is with your mindset. And so you have to reframe your motivation in a way that is actually motivating, because getting Platt the first time and regaining Platt, two entirely different things. DB Reckelman says, do you think pro teams would benefit from having veterans like Crepo, greater than 20 years of age and a couple years experience in the LCS, in their staff, just to raise this kids to actual pros or athletes instead of being 17-year-old gamers? Yes, I think that having role models that are slightly ahead of them and more professionalized is useful, very useful. And I think that part of the reason Korea is so strong, in fact, the main reason Korea is so strong, is because their infrastructure is set up in the mentor-mentee way. In Japan, where I used to coach athletics, and in Korea, where I've visited and I've seen very similar cultural attributes between Japan and Korea, the way that sport functions and the way that they've adopted in esport just quite naturally is that you have a career progression. You go from player to like mentor to senior. You go from junior to senior, then you go kind of up to coach or mentor, and then you go up to like management, and you just, okay, so there's always a climb. And so the person instructing you is never the one at the top, it's the one just above you. And that's a very effective way to be coached, because it's somebody who understands your challenges and just conquered them. So Crepo is one of those people. He understands their challenges, what they're facing, and he's just conquered them. So he can advise them and they can respect him. And it would be great if there was somebody who was like Crepo, but 5 years ago, had started doing what Crepo is going to be doing now, maybe, and then went up into like full coach. And so then he would be mentoring Crepo, and Crepo would be mentoring these people. So that's the chain that is building up in League of Legends. in the West that is going to lead to the professionalization of the scene. So yeah, I agree with you. And I see that as hopefully happening, but that is not typically the West's way of doing sport. Like in the West, we go and we hire professional Russian coaches to train our 5-year-olds how to play soccer. Like that's our approach. We want Mia Hamm to train our 12-year-old because we want like the best person in the world. So it might happen, it might not. Okay, so the time limit has passed and I want to let people go if they have something somewhere else to be. The rest of the questions I'm going to keep answering, and you can check out the VOD anytime you want at this address or on YouTube. But I wanted to just thank you for coming and remind you that there is a survey feedback form for this webinar, and it's at mindgames.gg/webinar feedback. mindgames.gg/webinar feedback. And it would really help me out if you went and you gave me feedback and if I could use those testimonials to kind of advertise what I'm doing here. A couple other things I want to talk about before I get to the next questions. Thanks for telling me how to pronounce your name, by the way. Some big things coming up. So I'm launching an Instagram account where I'm posting League of Legends training goals. So these are things that if you're playing for fun, you can use to fun-ize the game. It's like achievements. You can use them to, not to troll, but to make sure that you have something to tackle in the game if you're winning or if you're losing, which is one of the key elements to appreciating your play. So you can follow that at instagram.com/league goals, or you can go mindgames.gg/league goals. You can find all the information there. And then the other thing is that I'm going to be announcing that I'm training the Denmark Wild Dogs team eventually. And so that's going to be a part of my site. And I'm going to start offering maybe a podcast where I interview professional players and non-professional players and talk to them about really fun topics like how they cope, how they train. I want to talk to coaches and interview them about how they coach, and I want to talk to other people in the scene. So I'm going to be launching a podcast, and this is something that you can like carry with you on your commute or on your way to and from work and school. And it's not video, it'll just be audio. So I'll get to be there in their head with you for these in-depth interviews, conversations. So look forward to that. And of course, I need more ideas for webinars. So what is it that you want to know, that you want to learn from these webinars? Please, in your survey, you can tell me, or you can email me at weldon.t.green@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, mindgames.gg, and you can use the contact form there and tell me, what do you want the next webinar to be about? You decide. Because otherwise I'll do whatever topic it is that's coming up in my research and in my work that week. That's typically what I've been doing. Okay, so thank you for coming. If you have to take off, we'll see you later. And I'm going to get to the rest of the questions now. So Hafsales. I hope I said that right. Follow-up question would be, what kind of methods, if not methods, then what kind of physical or psychological advantages did they use to get where they are now? I think this is a follow-up question to, hang on, let me just show all the questions. How conscious are the pros in the scene about the psychology and training methods that you speak of? So basically, I hope that no professional players watch this because I kind of feel bad. But what I've discovered in my personal experience and a little bit from my research, and keep in mind, this is coming from the point of view of a psychologist, sports psychologist. I'm not an actual psychologist. So I'm always looking at the mindset. It's like a plague. But video games are typically seen as an avoidant behavior. There's something that you avoid in order to shirk responsibility. Not shirk responsibility, but in order to avoid uncomfortable internal states associated with what it is you don't want to do. So let's say there's something you don't want to do, and doing it would cause you to feel an uncomfortable internal state. A typical response for people who don't want to do that is to then do something else instead. Video games are a very easy thing to use to accomplish that. So you don't want to talk to your parents because you had a fight with them. You play a video game. You don't want to clean your room because it's messy. You play a video game. You don't want to do a particular project because you feel like either you know what is in the project or it's too easy, or you're like, oh my gosh, it's so much work, or you don't look forward to like forcing yourself to be on task. So you avoid the decision, you avoid the mental effort required to accomplish the task. That's the internal state, by checking out, by avoiding. So I have experienced interactions with a lot of professional players who became professional players because they literally avoided everything in their life so much that they got very good at League of Legends. And so they go up to the pro scene and then they discover, oh, this is work. And some of them can retrain their minds and say, okay, I'm going to professionalize now. I'm going to have an approach to this and I'm going to start treating it seriously. And some of them don't. And they continue with their typical behaviors of avoiding things that are uncomfortable to them. And I see this a lot in the challenger scene, which is probably one of the reasons these people are not in the LCS. However, I have encountered the opposite kind of people in the challenger scene, those who are there because they're dedicated, and also in the pro scene, people who are there because they want to be pros and they train hard. So what kind of methods or physical and psychological advantages did they have to get there? Well, they actually had psychological weaknesses that caused them to get there. They avoided things that the society was asking them to do, and that caused them to get enough time in the game to actually get there. But they also had skills in learning. The biggest psychological advantage that drives people to reach an elite level, remember, elite is 0.02% of performers. That's the same in any performance. The thing that drives people to that level is learning. They are masters of learning. And I'm not talking about school learning here. I'm talking about actual learning. They can learn things when they do them. They can reflect on what they did. They can see the problems. They can fix them. So you should go read The Art of Learning by, I forget who it is. It's this, I forget his name. He's a grandmaster at chess. And then he decided he wanted to go learn Tai Chi and he became a black belt. It's a really cool biography. It doesn't actually teach much about learning, but The Art of Learning, it's more about how it is that you master things in life. There's also another book called Mastery. There's one called The Inner Game of Tennis. There's one called The 4-Hour Chef by Tim Ferriss. It's all about learning new skills effectively. It's a learning and mastery book disguised as a cookbook. So I actually recommend this one because at the end you might be a fantastic cook as well, which is like, woo, excellent. Double whammy. But anyway, it's called The 4-Hour Chef. So DB Ruckelman says, could you maybe talk a little bit or do a little bit of a video log, like video, where we get some insight on how you work with this team? Maybe like a day in your life type of thing, or is that not allowed? Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Definitely. Josh Whiteskin is the guy who wrote The Art of Learning, says Hafsales. Thank you. Back to the video log thing. So maybe I could do a video log. I think that it might be more interesting to do a podcast because you actually don't need to see a lot of what I do. And if I can talk about it for an hour and a half, that would be more useful than if I could talk about it for 30 minutes. So podcasts are things that you can like leave on and while you're doing other things and walk around the house, or that you can put in your headphones and like go mow the lawn or shovel the snow or bike to work or bike to school, and you can listen and be interested in. So I think that I might do a podcast about that instead of a video log if that's acceptable. But I'll definitely consider doing both, like recording it as a video and offering the podcast as an option. I don't know if it's allowed or not. I would do it, but I'll definitely check, of course, with them. I'm not going to share any information that crosses the ethic. I have very strict ethical guidelines at my company that are modeled after sports psychology ethical guidelines, which are modeled after psychological field ethical guidelines. So it's very easy for me not to cross those because I'm very familiar with them. And that's the way that, that's the contract that I offer to the teams that I work with. It's very laid out. So yeah, it's possible, and I won't have to break any ethical rules to do it. Okay. There are no other questions, so I'll give you guys like a chance to ask them. And of course, remember that you can simply email me at weldontgreen@gmail.com, or you can message me at Reddit on Reddit, MindGamesWeldon, or on Twitter, MindGamesWeldon, and give me any of your questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. I also have a Q&A on my website, and right now it's paid. It's like $10 forever, one-time purchase membership, and you can you have permanent access to the Q&A and whatever else I decide to add to that membership level. I don't know exactly what it is yet. I'm still developing like how my website's going to work out, but you can always go there and ask questions. But it's not necessary because there's other ways to access me right now, and I'm not too busy. Eventually, I might be too busy. You might have to use the Q&A, but you don't have to right now. Okay, thanks everybody for coming, and I'll see you next time, I hope. Don't forget to go do the feedback, mindgames.gg/webinar feedback. Thank you.